I arrived with one suitcase and a hopeful heart. It had been nearly 6 years since I last stepped inside my son's home, not out of bitterness, just life. He was busy building his own, and I had quietly continued living mine in that small yellow cottage by the lake. But after my heart surgery last winter, the doctor said I shouldn't live alone anymore. "I'll come get you myself, Dad," my son Michael had said. "It's time we all lived under one roof again." He said we all, meaning his wife, Rachel, and their son Noah. I had seen them a few times over the years, holidays mostly, sometimes over Zoom, but I was just a guest in those moments. A smile on a screen, a chair pulled up for dinner and folded away when dessert was done. Now I was supposed to be part of their daily lives. I stood on the porch that morning, suitcase in one hand, Michael's hand on my back. Rachel opened the door. She smiled, polite but tight. "Let me take that," she said, reaching for my bag. I noticed she didn't call me Dad or Mr. Pierce, just that. Noah peeked from behind her, maybe 10 years old now. "Hi, Grandpa," he said, voice soft like he wasn't sure I'd answer. "Hi there, sport," I said. "You've grown a foot since Christmas." He smiled, but Rachel gently nudged him away. "Go wash up, sweetheart. Breakfast's almost done." The first few days passed in a polite sort of quiet. They gave me the guest room, an office with a futon and no window blinds. I was grateful, truly. I didn't come expecting luxury. But I noticed the way Rachel wiped the counter every time I made tea, or how she sighed when I left my slippers in the hallway. Michael was kind. He tried, but he was always working. Laptop open at the kitchen island, phone pressed to his ear during dinner. "Dad, sorry, just one sec. This client's in Tokyo." Always Tokyo, never me. At night, I sat in the dark room and tried to be small. Sometimes I'd hear them talking behind the closed bedroom door. Once Rachel's voice hissed through, "I didn't sign up to take care of 2 kids." I knew what she meant. A week later, it happened. I was doing laundry and spilled a little detergent on the floor. Slippery stuff, that blue soap. I reached for a rag, but Noah had come bounding in to get his basketball jersey and slipped. He wasn't hurt, just startled. But Rachel came flying down the hall like a storm. "What happened?" "He slipped," I said. I spilled something. I was just cleaning it." She scooped Noah into her arms and gave me a look I won't forget, like I was dangerous. That night I packed my suitcase, quietly, methodically. I folded the few shirts I brought, the little tin box of pills, my crossword puzzle book. I left a note on the kitchen table. "Didn't mean to be a burden. Thank you for the roof and the meals. I'll call when I'm settled back home. Dad." It wasn't bitter, just resigned. At dawn, I waited for the bus at the corner. My coat collar turned up against the wind. Suitcase at my feet. The old ache in my knee throbbing in the cold. But then I heard running footsteps. "Dad, wait!" It was Michael. He was barefoot, hair a mess, eyes wide and desperate. He saw the suitcase. "Please, don't go." Michael was out of breath when he reached me. He bent forward, hands on his knees like he was chasing a train he almost missed. For a moment neither of us spoke. The wind picked up. My coat flapped softly. The suitcase stood between us like a witness. "I read your note," he finally said. "I didn't sleep all night." I gave a small shrug, trying to look indifferent. "Didn't want to cause trouble. Rachel's uncomfortable, it's clear. She's just adjusting." "She called me an extra child, Mike." His eyes winced, like I'd thrown something. "I didn't come here to be a project," I continued. "I came because I thought maybe we could share a roof. Maybe I could read to Noah at night, take walks with him after school. Maybe we could be family again." "You still are," he said quickly. "Doesn't feel like it." He sat down on the curb beside me. We didn't look at each other for a while, just watched the cars roll by on the sleepy street. I could tell he wanted to say something, but was chewing on the words too long. "Dad," he finally said, quieter now. "I've been so wrapped up in everything. Work, bills, being a husband, a father. I didn't see how hard it was for you." "You shouldn't have to," I replied. "It's your life. I've had mine." "No," he said, sharper this time. "That's not how this works. You gave up a lot for me growing up. Now it's my turn. I didn't know how to balance it all." He turned toward me. "Rachel and we'll figure this out. She needs time. But I should have stood up for you more. I should have made space for you, not just physically, but in our lives. The sincerity in his voice, it cracked something open in me. I hadn't realized how much I needed to hear it. Not just kindness, but acknowledgement. That I wasn't some shadow drifting through their living room. That I still mattered. "I miss Mom," I said suddenly, voice catching me off guard. Michael looked over, surprised. "So do I," he whispered, "every day." We sat in that silence for a long time. Two men missing the same woman. Two men trying to learn how to be a family again. Finally, Michael reached over and gently picked up the suitcase. "Come back home, Dad," he said. "Let's try again. Better this time." When we walked through the front door, Rachel stood in the hallway. She didn't look angry, just unsure. "Rachel," I said before Michael could speak, "I'm sorry for any trouble I caused. I never meant to." She raised her hand. "No, Mr. Pierce," she said softly. "I'm the one who should apologize. I've been guarded. I thought I was protecting our routines, but I ended up shutting you out." She looked down, then met my eyes again. "I lost my father when I was 12. I don't really know how to live with one." My heart softened. "Maybe we can figure that out together," I said. She nodded, a bit stiffly, but it was something. That night, Noah asked if I could help him with his history project. We sat at the kitchen table, tracing maps of old battlefields. He asked me what it was like growing up without cell phones. I asked him what it was like living in a world with YouTube and drones. We laughed. We learned. And later, before he went to bed, he hugged me. Tight. "Don't leave again, Grandpa." "I won't," I whispered. "Not if I can help it." Spring came early that year. The first blossoms began peeking out from Rachel's front hedge in March, and Noah returned from school one afternoon clutching a little packet of tomato seeds like they were gold coins. "We're doing a garden project," he beamed. "Can we plant them in the backyard?" Rachel looked up from her laptop. "The backyard's all patchy," I smiled. "Not if we fix it." Noah's eyes lit up. "Can we, Grandpa?" "I think," I said, "we can make something pretty special." That weekend, I found myself back in the dirt. It had been years since I'd tended soil, not since your mother passed. But my hands remembered the turn of the spade, the patience of kneeling down and coaxing life out of brown earth. Noah was beside me every moment, his tiny gloves oversized and flopping as he pulled weeds like they owed him money. Rachel came out once, cup of tea in hand. She leaned against the doorframe, watching us. She didn't say anything, but she didn't have to. Her gaze had softened. By April, we had raised beds in rows, each carefully labeled: tomatoes, basil, green beans, strawberries. Rachel even added a row of marigolds along the edge, her mother's favorite, she said. And in the center, we built a small bench, just wood and nails from the shed, but Noah called it the thinking spot. One Sunday afternoon, as we sat there with dirt on our knees and lemonade in hand, Noah leaned into me and said, "I wish Grandma could see this." My heart caught. "She'd love it," I said quietly. She always said plants grow better when there's laughter around. And that's what we filled the backyard with: laughter, stories, little lessons about life buried in the roots of plants. Michael started coming out to help, too. On Saturdays, he'd trade his laptop for gardening gloves. We didn't talk much while working, men rarely do, but he was there, present, digging, sweating, laughing when I accidentally soaked my shoe with the hose. "I needed this," he said one morning, leaning on the rake. I didn't realize how far I'd drifted. I nodded. The world pulls us in all kinds of directions. You just have to plant your feet again sometimes. He smiled. "You always did talk in metaphors." "It's a dad thing." One evening, Rachel came out and joined me on the bench. The sun was setting. The marigolds caught the light like fire. "Thank you," she said simply. "For what?" "For not giving up on us." I looked at her, really looked at her. The woman who once wiped my mug twice before putting it away. The woman who had lost her own father young and didn't know how to make space for another. "I almost did," I said, "but then your husband chased me down barefoot." She laughed, a real unguarded laugh. "We're still figuring it out," she said, "but I'm glad you're here." "So am I." We sat in silence for a moment. Then she added, "Noah adores you. He gives me purpose." She looked down. "You give us all something we didn't know we were missing." I didn't have words for that, so I just smiled and watched the sun dip behind the fence. That night, as I climbed into bed in the little office-turned-bedroom, I glanced out the window. The moonlight spilled over the garden, and for the first time in a long while, I felt like I was home. It was a quiet Thursday morning when I found the envelope. No name, just resting on the kitchen table next to my favorite mug, the one Noah had painted at a school event, blue streaks and a wobbly heart right in the middle. At first I thought it was a bill. Old habit, I suppose. But when I opened it, I saw Rachel's handwriting. Neat, careful, almost nervous in its precision. Dear Mr. Pierce, or can I say Dad now? I'm still learning how to open doors I've kept locked for too long. This is one of them. I want you to know something. I see you. I see the way Noah looks at you with wonder. I see how Michael stands taller when you're in the room. I see the quiet kindness in how you fold your napkin at dinner or put the sugar back exactly how I like it. You've been patient. Too patient, maybe. I've been scared, not of you, but of what it means to love someone again, to let someone into the spaces I've built so carefully around my life. But I don't want to be scared anymore. So, yes, you're welcome here. Not as a guest, as part of our family. Rachel. I read it twice, then a third time, as if I couldn't quite believe the words were real. You know how some letters feel like they settle something inside you, like a tight knot finally loosening? That was this letter. Later that day, when Rachel came back from work, I didn't say anything. I just gave her a quiet nod across the living room. She smiled, eyes glistening, and nodded back. That was enough. Sometimes healing doesn't need a speech. It just needs a seat at the table. From that day forward, something changed. Subtle things. Rachel started making 2 cups of tea instead of 1 in the evening. She asked me questions, not just polite ones, but real ones. What was Michael like at 7? Did you always want to be a mechanic? Do you still miss her? Your wife? And I answered, slowly. Sometimes with stories, sometimes with silence. But the gap between us, it shrank. Michael started bringing his work laptop out to the kitchen just to sit while I cooked. Noah began drawing 3 stick figures in his school art projects: Mom, Dad, Grandpa. The house wasn't perfect, families rarely are. But it was warm. It was real. It was enough. One evening, after dinner, I sat on the back porch alone. The garden shimmered under the stars. I held Rachel's letter in my hands again. I wish you could see this, I whispered to the sky. I wasn't sure who I was talking to. Maybe my late wife. Maybe the man I used to be. Maybe just the quiet world around me that had finally given something back. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel like I was in someone else's house. I felt home. Truly, deeply home. It was late summer when the storm rolled in. Not a drizzle. Not even a good old-fashioned thunderclap. No, this one was different. The air turned strange that afternoon, thick like soup, humming like a warning. Even the birds had gone quiet. I was outside, pruning the tomato plants, when I saw Rachel step out onto the porch, her phone pressed to her ear and a crease between her brows. She hung up and called out to me. They're saying flash flood warnings, something about the old dam upstream. I stood slowly. That dam hasn't been a concern in years. Well, she said, trying to hide her worry. Maybe years just caught up. By dinner time, the wind was howling. Noah's little face was pressed against the window. It's loud, Grandpa. I knelt beside him. Loud doesn't always mean dangerous, but it does mean we stay together. Rachel and Michael gathered supplies, flashlights, bottled water, extra blankets. The power flickered once, then came back. We all flinched. I think we should move to the basement, Michael said. I nodded. Just in case. We all carried something. Noah clutched a stuffed dinosaur. Rachel, her wedding album. Michael had a portable charger and weather app open. I brought down the thermos. Some habits die hard. We huddled on the old sectional in the basement as the sky split above us. Rain pounded like fists on the roof. Then the power went out. In the dark, time bends. It's not minutes or hours. It's heartbeats, whispers, the way Rachel reached out and held Noah without needing to speak. I told them stories. About storms I'd lived through. About being trapped in a gas station for 12 hours during the '93 blackout. About your mother making soup on a camping stove while thunder cracked overhead. We laughed. We stayed warm. And then suddenly, silence. No rain, no wind, just the stillness of aftermath. The next morning, we opened the basement door to find half the street underwater. But the house was dry, safe. Neighbors weren't so lucky. Some waded through knee-high water with garbage bags over their shoes. A few cars had floated down the hill. Michael went out to help, so did I. We bailed water, passed out hot coffee, offered our basement to an elderly couple whose furnace was flooded. And Rachel opened the front door wide and said, "Come in, we've got blankets." Our home became a little haven, just like that. That night, the neighborhood gathered in our backyard, the only one still dry. We lit a few candles, passed around thermoses and granola bars. There was mud on everyone's boots, but a strange kind of peace in their faces. One neighbor, Mrs. Delaney, looked at me and said, "We're lucky to have you here. Your family kept us calm." I opened my mouth to correct her, to say their family, but Rachel slipped an arm through mine and said, "Yes, we are." And that was that. Sometimes it takes a storm to wash away the last bits of distance between people. Sometimes it takes shared fear to remind us who we really are to one another. That night, I stood in the middle of the yard, watching Noah show his flashlight tricks to two neighbor kids, Rachel handing out towels, Michael on the phone organizing cleanup. And I thought, this is what rebuilding looks like. Not just after a flood, but after years of silence. Tea started with a drawer that wouldn't close. Rachel was doing one of her seasonal deep cleans, the kind where the whole house smells like lemon polish and you can't find the remote for 3 days. I was in the living room helping Noah piece together a puzzle when she called from the hallway closet. "Dad, this drawer's stuck again." I got up with a grunt, knees not what they used to be, and shuffled over. She stood with her sleeves rolled up, a bandana tied around her hair, and a puzzled look on her face. "I think it's warped," she said, "or something fell behind." I knelt down, gave the drawer a firm tug, and out it came, not just the contents but a whole section of the shelf with it. Behind it, wedged tight like it didn't want to be found, was a shoebox. Old, taped at the corners, covered in dust. Rachel blinked. "I don't remember putting that there." I didn't either. We opened it on the dining table, hands slow, like we were afraid it might bite. Inside, photos, letters, pieces of paper folded and worn soft with age. My handwriting, her mother's too. I hadn't seen some of those photos in years. Rachel as a baby on my shoulders, Michael at his first t-ball game, our late dog Bandit licking ice cream off someone's nose. Memories I thought were long gone. Rachel picked up a letter and began to read. It was one her mother had written to me. A simple note, scribbled in the middle of the night when she couldn't sleep. "If anything happens to me, remind the kids every day that they are more than enough, that I love them wildly, completely, and always, and that you gave us all of this." Rachel didn't speak for a long time. When she finally did, her voice cracked. "I never knew she wrote this." I shook my head. "Neither did I. I must have tucked it away, after the funeral. Couldn't bring myself to read anything back then." She wiped her cheek. "She loved you so much." "I know," I said quietly. "And I failed to bring that love forward. I buried it with her, instead of carrying it into the years that came after." Rachel looked at me, eyes soft. "You're carrying it now." That box became something sacred. We sat together that night. Michael joined too. And we passed each photo like communion, each letter like scripture. Noah slept on the couch, unaware of the healing happening just feet away. Michael found a crayon drawing he made in 2nd grade, our whole family standing under a giant sun. Stick figures, smiles, a big red heart in the corner. He laughed. "I remember drawing this. I thought I'd be a cartoonist." Rachel grinned. "You still draw like that?" And we all laughed, together. Later that week, Rachel placed the box on the top shelf of the living room cabinet. Not hidden away this time, not behind a warped drawer or buried in a closet. Visible, present, a part of the home. She turned to me and said, "Maybe we should add to it." And so we did. A note from Noah about his first lost tooth. A photo of all of us at the neighborhood picnic after the flood. Even a silly sketch Michael made of me cooking in Rachel's apron. The memory box grew, but more importantly, so did we. It's strange, isn't it? How something forgotten can become the very thing that connects you again. That shoebox wasn't just full of old papers. It was full of proof that we had always belonged to each other, even when we forgot, even when it hurt, even when we didn't know how to say it. It happened on a Tuesday. Nothing special about it, at least not at first. The kind of day where the mail is late, the coffee tastes just okay, and the clouds hang low like they're waiting for something to happen. I was out back, pruning the rose bushes Rachel had planted last spring. They bloomed brighter than I expected, even with my clumsy care. I was humming to myself, bent low, when I heard the screen door creak open. Michael stepped out. He didn't say anything at first, just stood there on the porch, hands in his pockets, watching me. "You know," he said finally, "you've been out here every morning for those flowers." I nodded. "They don't complain, they just bloom." He chuckled softly. Then, silence. I turned to him. "Something on your mind, son?" That word, son, hung in the air a moment longer than it should have. He looked down, then back at me. He cleared his throat. "I signed Noah up for Little League. Starts next month." "That's great," I said. "He's got a good arm. I've seen him throw couch pillows across the living room with precision." Michael smiled, a small one, like it snuck out without asking permission. Then after a long pause he said, "I was wondering if you'd come with me to his first practice, maybe help show him how to throw." My heart didn't leap, it ached, in the best way. "I'd love that," I said quietly. We didn't talk more about it that day, but something changed. In the way he offered me coffee the next morning without asking how I liked it, because now he remembered. In the way he asked about my knee after I stepped off the porch with a small limp. In the way he handed me a photo of Mom and said, "Noah asked who she was. I told him she'd love him like crazy." I smiled. She would have spoiled him rotten. We laughed. And then came the moment. It wasn't loud or ceremonial. It wasn't the result of a tearful speech or dramatic confession. It happened in the middle of dinner. Rachel had made her famous lasagna, Noah was talking about dinosaurs, and I was helping pass the bread basket when Michael leaned back in his chair, looked across the table and said, "Hey, Dad, can you pass the Parmesan?" There it was. That word, Dad. Not sir, not hey, not that cautious silence that came from years of unspoken distance. Dad. Rachel caught it too. Her fork paused midair. Noah kept talking unaware. I said nothing, just passed him the cheese. But my hand shook, just a little. After dinner, I stepped out into the night air. Michael followed. We stood on the porch, listening to crickets and quiet. "I didn't mean to make it weird," he said after a moment. "You didn't." He looked at the stars. "I think I forgot what it felt like to say that, to mean it." I nodded. "And I forgot what it felt like to hear it." He turned to me then. "You never stopped being my father. I just stopped knowing how to be your son." My voice caught in my throat. "But you came back," he said. "And you stayed, even when I didn't make it easy." I put a hand on his shoulder. "That's what dads do. Some stories don't end with apologies. Some don't end at all. They just begin again, with a single word, a single dinner. A single seed planted after the storms pass. Spring came early this year. Or maybe I just noticed it more. The robins returned like clockwork. The plum tree in the backyard bloomed pink and proud, and the breeze that used to carry loneliness now carried laughter. Noah and I spent every Saturday in the yard. I taught him how to plant beans, how to make a scarecrow, how to whistle through a blade of grass. He taught me how to make velociraptor noises and how to sneak cookies without his dad noticing. Rachel kept the coffee hot and the porch warm with her presence. Her belly was growing, a little miracle on the way. She called me Grandpa one morning by accident, and then with a smirk said, "Well, that's sticking." "Michael?" He changed too. Not all at once. Healing isn't a flood. It's a slow drip, patient and persistent. But I saw it in his eyes the day he came home late from work and still knelt beside Noah to help with homework. I heard it in his voice when he asked how I was doing, not out of politeness, but out of care. One day, while digging up weeds together, he paused and said, "You know, I used to think I had to be perfect to earn your approval." I looked up from the soil. "You never had to earn it, son. You just had to believe it was already there." He nodded. "I see that now." We built a small garden bed together. Raised wood frame, rich soil, a little sign Noah painted that read, "Grandpa's Garden." The R was backward. I left it that way. We planted marigolds for Rachel, lavender for calm, tomatoes, Noah's favorite, and roses. Always roses, not just because they were Mom's favorite, but because they taught me something. Roses bloom not in spite of their thorns, but with them, like families, like us. Sometimes I sit out there in the early evening, coffee in hand, watching the wind move through the leaves. I think about the first night I arrived, the rain, the suitcase, the silence. I think about the day I almost left again, bags packed, heart heavy, convinced I didn't belong. But I also think about the moment Rachel put her hand on mine, about Michael calling me Dad again, about the laughter that now lives in the corners of this house. Life didn't hand me a perfect second chance. It handed me soil, and I had to dig, plant, water, wait. But here I am, rooted, not just as a father, but as something more, as part of a home that grew back around me. If you're listening to this, maybe you felt what I felt, unseen, unwanted, unsure if love still has your name in it. Let me tell you something I wish someone had told me. It's never too late, not to forgive, not to stay, not to grow. All it takes is the courage to wait long enough for spring.